obvious first question. 28 years in the making. What's the vibe in Montreal heading into Game 3 tomorrow night?
There's a lot of excitement here for sure. I mean, it's been, as you mentioned, 28 years. The team hasn't been all that competitive in that time, so I think there's a lot of people really excited. There's a bit of disappointment that public health authorities in Quebec didn't let more than 3,500 people in the building, so that's kind of mitigated the excitement. I think some people are upset about that. Other people are relieved because, we're not quite out of this pandemic thing just yet, but I think there are a lot of people who would have liked to have had at least a half-full crowd in there, so that has mitigated some of the excitement. But I would think there's going to be some nice camera shots of the crowd outside the Bell Center during Game 3, because if the third round and even the second round are any indication, and there you go. I mean, you can only imagine how that's going to be ramped up for a Stanley Cup final game, the first one in this city in 28 years.
I love hockey, and I feel like I could get along great with Habs fans because it is so clear how much they love the game. The question remains, as the series shifts to Montreal, how important will home ice advantage be for the Canadiens at Bell Center?
Well, I mean, the one real aspect of home ice advantage that impacts a game is controlling matchups. And so I think we saw in Game 1 that John Cooper was very pleased to have the Yanni Gourde line out against the Philip Danault line, which kept the Danault line against or away from the Braden Point line. And while the Canadiens made some efforts to try and get away from that in Game 2, they didn't overly try and disrupt their game plan at all to get away from it. And John Cooper did chase that same matchup again in Game 2. It didn't work quite as well. I thought the Canadiens, obviously carried the play for most of that game. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Game 3. Dominique Ducharme is coming back behind the bench after a 2-week quarantine after testing positive for COVID. And what matchups he's going to chase. But I would imagine he's going to stick that Danault line on the point line. And a lot of things are going to kind of fall from there. So I feel like the look of the game could be quite different than what we saw in Games 1 and 2 in Tampa with a clear defensive assignment for that Danault line, and see if the other lines can be freed up to create some more offense.
You brought up Ducharme. Any potential lineup changes for Game 3 with him calling the shots now behind that bench?
No, I don't think so. And let's be clear. I mean, he's behind the bench, but he's been calling the shots the way he would normally would from his home. He's been in regular contact with Luke Richardson, Alex Burrows, and Sean Burke throughout this 2-week time that he's been away. All the decisions that have been made lineup-wise, even going right down to the starting lineup for a given game, he's involved in. He's been involved between periods with quick phone calls or even text messages with Luke to send some messages. So it's not like he's been completely detached from the decision-making process, but I would be surprised if the lineup that you're showing right now is not the lineup that we see in Game 3. I mean, there's a slight possibility that we could see a Jake Evans come in somewhere up front, but I don't really know where that would be, because I feel like the Canadiens feel that from top to bottom, they played a really solid game in Game 2. And so making changes would be sort of a mixed message to their group, because I think they sold that to their team and said, listen, if we do that in Game 3, we have a pretty good chance of winning. So to go out and make a change after playing such a solid game in Game 2 would be a bit of a conflicting message.
Makes sense. Arpon, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy Game 3.